I have one question that I'm going to answer. And if anybody's here, you can ask me other questions. So, okay. So the question I have is from a mom of multiple children, I think 4, and she wrote me and asked me to talk about why won't my kids respect me? Why don't they listen to me? Why do I have to yell and yell and yell to get them to do anything I ask them to do? Why do I have to explode is the word she used. Why do I have to explode to get them to listen to me? So the first thing that comes to mind is, do you always explode to get them to listen to you? Is that the pattern? Is when you're trying to get your children to do something, and you rely on exploding to get them to do that thing, and they rely on you exploding to get them to do that thing, then that's the pattern. You have to change the pattern. And the pattern doesn't have to be changed overnight. It can be incremental changes. So for the first trick really is to be aware that you're stuck in a pattern, and the person who's going to change that pattern is going to be you. And so if I get up in the morning and I say, okay, get up, kids. And then I say, get up, kids. And I say, get up, kids. And I say, get up, kids. I say it over and over again, expecting them not to listen, expecting them to ignore me, expecting them to wait until I scream, right? Then that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen every single morning. It's not going to change. But to go to the other extreme where you say, okay, well, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm going to let you crash and burn and be late for school and walk yourself to school and whatever, make your own breakfast and make your own lunch and see you later. I'm just going to stop trying to get you up in the morning. And what ends up happening then is that's too extreme, right? And your child just crashes and burns, and you crash and burn, and there's no middle ground. And the middle ground is where we want to be, where we want to sort of play with it incrementally. Changes happen incrementally. They don't happen overnight. You don't go from one extreme of completely using anger, frustration, annoyance to get your children to do anything to absolutely not showing them any emotion at all, right? And just letting them figure it out themselves. So the first thing I would say is tell them that you're going to try to do this differently. Have a family meeting, talk to them about it, and say, how can we solve this problem together? Because this is a problem for me, and I'm guessing it's a problem for you. And in that family meeting, let's come up with some creative solutions. And one of the creative solutions might be is, Mom, you tell me 3 times. You're like, no, I don't even want to tell you once. Tell me 3 times to get up. And if I don't listen, then it's my problem. And you say, okay, we'll try that out. But what happens if you don't listen after 3 times? Whose problem is that? Well, there's 2 things going on. Your child is going to have to deal with not getting up and taking responsibility for himself. But you're also going to have to deal with the feelings that come up when you can't control the morning, right? Like you want to yell at them because you need them to get up, because that's also something that you need for yourself, right? So then you have to deal with that. Like you have to bite your tongue, and you're going to have to feel the feeling, and you're going to have to walk away. But in that family meeting, you're having a conversation about the consequences that happen when you don't step in and go to anger to manage them. So you might say, well, what happens when I don't end up yelling at you? Well, I really like that. Okay, so if I don't yell at you and I walk away and you don't get up in the morning and you are late for school, which is a stressor for me and a stressor for you, what happens then? How do we deal with that? So it's a we problem, not an I problem. A we problem is the child gets to have input in the problem solving of the morning sequence, right? And gets to have input in how the new pattern is going to be. So the new pattern is going to take many iterations of effort. We're going to keep trying this. We're going to keep exploring this. But there has to be a bottom line. You, as the parent, have to have a bottom line. And that bottom line is you have to get up in the morning and go to school. How you do that, that's we can work with that, but you have to get up in the morning and go to school. So so that's my answer to how, well, that's the beginning of my answer to how you start to navigate and problem solve your frustration and anger when you're trying to get your kids to do something, right? You got to notice that when you're angry, that's a pattern, a relationship pattern that you've created with your child, and your child expects that. So they wait for your anger to do something, to actually move their butts, right? So when you start to say, okay, I'm noticing that I'm using anger to get them to move their butts, then I'm going to stop doing that. But I'm going to be transparent about that. I'm going to tell them, I'm noticing I'm doing this and it's not working for me, and it's definitely not working for you. And I'm going to start, I want to do it differently. And that's when you start to have the conversation about problem solving around listening. The other thing I would say is that one of the reasons is that why do you get angry? Well, I mean, obviously you get angry because I would get angry because I feel disrespected and I feel powerless, and I end up using my anger to get my kids to do something. I did that a lot, when my kids were smaller. But why do you get angry? So getting in touch with what is really going on internally is this other piece of work that you get to do of understanding yourself. Why do you get angry? What's really going on there, right? Do you feel disrespected? Do you feel invisible, unheard? Do you feel small? Do you feel like no one listens to you, right? Anywhere in life. I mean, do you feel like what position in your family were you? Were you the youngest, the oldest? Did your parents listen to you? What is this related to? What is this connected to beyond your children? How did you get heard when you were a child? How did you get your parents' attention? How did you get your friends' attention? How did you get your peers' attention? It's all continuous, it's all connected. And so when you start to understand why anger, or why you wait until you're angry to get heard, then you start to say, okay, wait a minute, I've been doing this in variation, in various forms all my life. When I was younger, I had to yell and scream to get my parents' attention because they didn't listen to me the first time or the second time or the third time. So this is pattern thinking, pattern behavior, pattern relationship patterns that you carry inside of you, that you're just repeating with your own child. So the more awareness that you have about how and why you feel this way, the more ability and leverage you're going to have in terms of changing it now. Now you get to fix this now. Now that's the cool thing. You get to make this work. You get to make this work with your child. And it's not about forcing him to listen. It's about creating a conversation with him that includes your process of taking charge without anger, right? There's a transparency that you're including your process with them, that this is something that you want to do. This is important to you. You need to be a parent leader. You don't want to be a reactive parent. You don't want to be exhausted every morning by yelling and screaming to get your kids to get up in the morning and go to school. That's horrible. And you don't want that will last through high school if you don't change it now. And the way you change it now is you make that U-turn and you start to say, okay, what's actually going on inside of me? And then you also build a relationship with your child where you start to have a conversation with them that's transparent, all the while knowing that these are incremental changes, and the end goal is that you're not going to get angry. You're going to have a child who gets up in the morning and takes takes responsibility for themselves. And you're going to allow your child to struggle and fail and flail without you stepping in and saying, okay, I'm going to fix it. So you might mean that your child's going to have to get up a few mornings and be late for school, go to school without food, without lunch. You know, your child's going to have some reality checks about what it means to take responsibility for himself in the morning. It also is going to mean that you're going to have to check in with yourself and like what's really going on with this anger and frustration and why this particular trigger is going on inside of you. And then you as the parent leader get to slowly move in the direction that you want to go in, which is, my guess, is to have respect, connection, and harmony in the family. So that is my quick and dirty answer to that question. So anybody else have a question for me? Okay. I think that's going to be it for me today as my trial number one sort of rehearsal, dress rehearsal for the first of many Wednesdays at noon. Facebook Live conversations about parenting, getting real about parenting, and seeing all the different sort of angles of it. It's not just about strategy of how to make your child listen to you. It's also strategy and way of thinking about how to get yourself to listen to yourself and to move in the direction that you want to go as a parent. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye.